You're ahead of me these days.
Awesome.
Are we recording, sir? He said, yeah. All right. Okey dokey. We're going to call this meeting to order at 6:01. Welcome, everybody, to the Basalt Council meeting. And let's see, how about if we get a roll call, Pam? Do you have time for that this evening?
I don't know. In a rush. Okay, Gary Tenenbaum, Bill Infante,
Here.
Katie Schwer,
Here.
Auden Schindler,
Here.
Jennifer Riffle,
Present.
Ryan Slack, Jackie Whitson.
I'm here.
Okay, we are short
I
too.
read about half of her email.
Thank you. Let's see, what should we do first? Bill Infante, would
Yes.
you like to read the Basalt is an inclusive?
Always a joy, never a task. Basalt is an inclusive, sustainable mountain community that boasts both historic charm and progressive vision. It is an engaging place to live, work, and play, while offering an abundance of creative, professional, educational, and recreational outlets.
And ain't that the truth?
I'll tell you.
Can I get an amen?
Dang.
Okay, thank you, somebody. All right. Let's see, let me just rifle through these notes really quick before we even start. We always want to thank Grassroots for recording our meetings and then playing them over for people on grassrootstv.org. Special thanks to our videographer this evening, Ryan O'Donnell, who makes always the nice second Ryan in the room for sure. Tomorrow, the mayor's coffee is at 8 o'clock at Cece's. If you come to the coffee, I will buy it, or else Ryan will, if he's there. And I announced this last meeting, but I will say it again, the Roaring Fork Conservancy River Cleanup is this Saturday, April 27th. I think you can be there at 8, right? That's what I read online, but it says 8:30 here. It's right here in this park, Lions Park, and there's lots of stuff to pick up always. It's great fun. And there's donuts too. I forgot about, pancakes.
Pancake wagon.
That's great. Some other things that are going on is the Basalt master planning effort is happening right now. And just the next few events are on the 25th. There's an event, what are we calling these?
Master plan kickoff.
Master plan kickoff events on 4/25, and then at the temporary, then again on May 9th at Basalt High, May 30th at Rocky Mountain Institute. So we would love to have everybody's input. Some new faces are always appreciated. I see there's a Lake Christine post-fire panel discussion, May 6th, 6 to 8 at Basalt High School. Learn how the Lake Christine fire changed our local landscape and discuss completed, ongoing, and future restoration. Okay, that's quite the pile. All right, let's move on. Our first item is the consent agenda. Does anybody have anything they have questions on regarding the consent agenda items, or is there a motion?
I wasn't here for the minutes, so I won't.
Bag that one, okay.
I'm recusing myself as well.
Really?
I wasn't here either.
Well, Auden and Ryan can motion to approve everything minus the minutes. That's what I
Yes.
did last time.
All right, that's what I do.
Okay,
Second.
all in favor of everything except for the minutes, say aye.
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 Okay, and I guess we just need a motion for the minutes of April 9th.
Motion.
Is there a second? All in
Second?
favor?
Aye.
Okay, good enough. So our next item is invitation to the public to make comments on anything that is not on the agenda for up to 3 minutes. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to make comments for any item that is not on the agenda? Okey doke. Let's see. Okay, mayor and council reports and comments. Anyone? Bill?
I have two quick things. kind of falls into the thanks and praise category too. But last week, there was an outstanding concert at the Arts Council at Willits. Joan Osborne sang songs of Bob Dylan, which was extraordinary, and it was supported by Skylar and Becky over at Elevate. So just wanted to recognize them for being great community folks doing that. And the second thing, a really cool institution in town, Ascendigo Awareness, deals with kids with autism. They evidently did some training for Chief Knott, who attended the training and then also took an online course, and I guess has encouraged many of the police officers to similarly take the online course. So really appreciate that and want to thank Chief Knott for having gone the distance to understand and better equip our officers to address people on the autism spectrum. So thank you, Chief Knott, and thank you all the officers.
Thank you,
And thank
Bill.
you, Ascendigo.
Thanks, Bill. Others? Anybody?
I'll put a gratitude out there.
Do.
So, I commonly send a lot of gratitude to staff, and tonight I'd like to give gratitude for my fellow board members for being here and for running for office and doing this. So, thank you.
Because Lord knows, there's nothing else you'd rather be doing. Correct? Good answer. All right. I have a tiny little gratitude thing too, or it's just, I call it the miracle of spring, wherein a week ago, there weren't any buds on the trees at my house, and now there's buds everywhere. And I just love it. It's just like things are growing so fast from the heavy snowfalls and all the moisture, and maybe no one else is excited like I am, but maybe they are. Okay. What about you? You got, okay, all right, okay. Okay, if there's no other council comments, how about Ryan Mahoney, manager's report?
Couple quick updates for you. So let's see, a couple of them were mentioned. Gun range meeting, so as we speak, a gun range update from the Citizen Committee is taking place in Carbondale at the 3rd Street Center. They will be taking that show on the road to Basalt in May to update the community. This meeting was, while it's a public meeting technically because they're debriefing some of the elected officials from Pitkin and Eagle counties, they were really just kind of giving them a glimpse of what they had come up with. So I was supposed to attend a 4 o'clock meeting today that I thought was here, but it actually ended up being down there, so I missed it. So otherwise I would be able to share that information with you all, but I will follow up, and Chief Knott is there as we speak, and so he's going to get that information, and I'll get dates for the community when that will be rolled out. So secondly, the river park, so the Whitewater Park rather, as you know, we've received a grant, or the county's received a grant to do some work around that. We were hoping to get this council together with the Board of County Commissioners at our first meeting in May, but there's been some delays just in contracts and whatnot on their end. And so we're thinking one of the meetings in June for that. And so there will be a full update from Blue Green, who are their consultants. And of course, we will be a party to that because there's some improvements in the right of way. And so more to come on that. I think everything else was stated, so that's good. Oh, no, one more thing. The hillside. We do want to, just now as a follow-up, that hillside wildfire mitigation was completed. I was telling the mayor that on a walk on Sunday night from the park, the river park, you can get a great vantage of it and just be able to see sort of the entirety of the work. But it was basically 2 days of the Swift crew, and then we had our town staff participate in the cleanup, but then we also had Aspen Tree Service help us with one of their chippers and a truck, and of course First Bank. So that ended up being a great partnership, and I think a great example for what wildfire mitigation can and should look like. So
Okay,
that's it.
thank you very much. Okay, our first item on the presentations is just called House Bill 1052. And I spoke with the folks that brought this to us, and they preferred to put their presentations off because they would like to get some input from council, and this wasn't enough time on the agenda, so better than a surprise about that. So, so they're gonna reschedule with staff. But we do have here Ann Scott from the Basalt Library, and she's going to give us an update on all the great work they've been doing in their strategic planning efforts. Yes, please. Nice outfit. I can't help it but notice.
Thank you. It's getting a little warm. When you're inside the library all day, you forget how beautiful and springy it is. I haven't met all of you. My name is Ann Scott, and I'm really happy to be the director of the Basalt Regional Library. And I have the tremendous good fortune to work with an amazing group of people who are truly committed to responding to our community's needs. Some of you probably realize that the role of a public library is pretty complicated. Our original mission has always been to nurture the democratic process and to level the playing field so that everyone has the same opportunities to grow knowledge. But that vision of unfettered access has been challenged by some ever-widening gaps. What are those gaps? We've spent the better part of a year talking with hundreds of folks to find out how we could do a better job of connecting them. We asked them what they liked. We asked them what they lacked. We asked them what might be getting in the way of their taking advantage of the many resources that the library offers at no charge. We spoke with teachers, with students, with readers and non-readers, millennials and seniors, newcomers, old-timers, community leaders, nonprofit organizations, other Valley Library directors and staff, and finally, our own boards. And we learned some nice things, that for the most part, the community values our collections, our services, our programs, our staff who are so warm and inviting, that we're seen as a hub and a treasure, and some say the living room of Basalt, which is particularly nice. But we also learned that working parents and millennials have a tough time spending time with us, that our hours don't quite fit their busy schedules, that transportation from Elgibel, particularly in the summer, is a challenge for our youth. We learned that a sense of social isolation is a quality of life issue for seniors and children, millennials and newcomers. And we learned that we can do more to serve our Latinx community and to create a cross-generational, cross-cultural sense of community. And we've learned that, try as we might, there are still many who do not know that we protect your privacy and defend your right to the same access to knowledge, access no matter what your status, and that we freely share a rich diversity of resources that have life-changing potential. So for the next few months, I'll be analyzing the feedback that we've received, and I think that you probably have a summary of that feedback in your packet. So I'll be looking at that and discerning what seems like the most urgent and what changes would have the biggest positive impact. And then, of course, looking at the associated cost, for example, for extended hours. And then I'll be exploring grants and finessing our budget and coming back to our board with some proposals. In the meantime, though, and this is why I say I'm so lucky, we have a staff that is being highly responsive. With every new bit of feedback, they've been exploring opportunities with other successful nonprofits to pool resources to address some of these needs. And we're creating a highly layered marketing plan, realizing that each demographic has its own unique way of learning about what's happening in the Valley. We're also exploring taking programming opportunities out into the valley. So if they can't come to us, we'll just go to them. So some examples of that work are citizenship classes, parenting workshops, escape rooms, Seed Savers Club, job training, philosophical discussions on topics like local economies, and presentations such as the Roaring Fork, Quilt Guild, board game nights, yoga for kids, and more Spanish language programming. We're also going to be trying out an after-work story time this summer on the last Thursdays of the month at 5:30. All of our story times have traditionally been in the morning, and from what we're learning, that just doesn't work for everybody. We'll be celebrating Day of the Child with Jarabe Mexicano as they present a songbook of Mexican folk as well as Tex-Mex, Latin rock, and reggae cumbia. That's going to be on April 30th. That's a Tuesday at 5:30. And we have another really fun program that's coming up, Movies on the Lawn. So our millennials tell us that they've never experienced a drive-in movie before. So we're going to recreate that experience for them this summer with the help of the Chamber's blow-up screen and an FM transmitter. You can drive your car in to face the east side of the library building.
Oh, my God.
And tune in to the audio, or you can have a picnic on the lawn. Those are going to take place June 15th, July 6th, August 10th, and September 14th. We're also continuing to convene nonprofits in discussion at the library and to select one or two projects that we can tackle as a team. So if you know someone that would like to be a part of that, please let me know. And finally, we're hoping to celebrate our 10th anniversary in that building next year with a big community party. And maybe hire a band and serve up some barbecue and hold an open house to highlight some of the opportunities that we're offering everyone. You also have, I believe you have a magazine that has all of our upcoming events. So I just wanted to share some of that feedback with you and answer any questions that you might have. And always look to you for any feedback that you might have in relation to how we're doing and ways that we could better serve the community.
Thank you so much, Anne. I just told the president of the library board, Karen Barch, if you don't know Karen, the other day, that they really have got themselves a keeper in Anne. And I have to say that the board is more moving and shaking than any library board that has ever been in this town since I've been here. I mean, the commitment they have made to their strategic plan and to getting together with every kind of person in this community is amazing to me. It's intense, a lot of work, but it's beyond my wildest dreams. I only wish we could have or would be ever able to spend that kind of time on a strategic plan. But with that, let me just open it up to anybody that has a comment or a question for Anne.
I'd just chime in too in saluting all the great work that you've done. And again, having met with the board when you presented the strategy, it sounds like you were on the mark, hitting all the buttons that our community needs, which is great. Hosting events like the Dick Porterfield thing, super good. Keep that up. And, bringing people together is such an important function. So thanks. I think what we heard in some of the engagements too was just about the needs of the minority community. And I know that's in your strategy, but I'd love to support you in principle and then encourage you to apply for grants that the town awards every fall. You've got to apply. It's a competitive process. But if we can support your programming through our grants, that would be a tremendous way to evidence our support for the library and the great work that you're doing.
Great, thank you.
And speaking of old people who remember drive-ins, when I read Bookmobile in there, I just was like, oh my God, would that be so much fun?
Yeah.
Anyway,
It's
you've
gonna
got a
be great
lot on your
summer.
plate, so.
You do.
Anybody else? Thank you so much, Anne.
Thank you.
Have a
Thanks
good
for having
evening.
me. You too.
Okey doke. So at this point, I would like to invite Bill Ray to step forward. He's got some information he wants to share with us. I worked with Bill initially when RAFTA was working on some issues that were super complex, some as complex as our Tabor issue might be at this point. And maybe, Bill, I could just ask you to do a quick bio of who you are, why you're here.
Sure. Well, good evening. Thank you, Mayor and council members, for having me here. My name is Bill Ray. I'm a public affairs specialist here in Colorado. I've been in Colorado over 20 years, working on public affairs issues at the state, local levels. I work with special districts, transportation authorities, towns, cities, to help them address different issues around public finance and community needs. And then I also do work in the private sector too with developers, home builders, the healthcare community. So working on lots of issues either at the legislature, at the local government level, and even a couple things at the federal level, though no one really wants to go back to DC anymore. I live down in Denver, but I have clients across the state of Colorado. I was very proud to help RAFTA succeed in 2018 with its Destination 2040 plan. Also have worked with Eagle County Open Space on their successful renewal this past election cycle. And I work with governments, local governments all across, from actually all the way to Holyoke on the Kansas, Nebraska, Colorado border, all the way down to Durango. So, and I, as everyone has heard, whenever I'm up here, I'm hoping one day I'll be one of your neighbors, but I'm still working on my wife here on that. So, anyways, thank you.
Thank you.
So, I guess I came to this issue here with your Tabor issue because I do have a long experience working on public finance issues here in Colorado, including those that lead toward elections and public affairs work. And a lot of what we do is try and figure out how can we best communicate within a community about the issue? How can we talk to the community about the issue so they understand it, they understand how it happened, why it happened, the consequences, and also solutions. And how do we help them be part of helping us find solutions? So a lot of what we do try and get as much feedback and input from the community as possible so we can help make informed decisions that represent the needs of the community. And one way we do that is we try and do surveys. It's one of our best tools for touching a broad section of the community. And typically we start with, I gotta find the clicker, I'm sorry. So typically we do start with what's called a scientific survey, the kind of the statistical survey when you hear pollsters. That we do want to try and have a statistical survey, which means we take a sample size, we take a sample of your community, and we try and have the balance between men, women, age groups. We try and match the demographic profile of your community. Unfortunately, in this case, Basalt's pretty small. And so the smaller your community, and we try and survey at least 300 people, we felt, and working with other professionals that I work with, that it was just going to be cost prohibitive to do a traditional poll sample here, because we were going to have to call so many people, and that call center time was just going to be cost prohibitive. And we also would potentially alienate and upset people in the community if they got too many phone calls, because a lot of times we call at dinner time. So that's when people are home. So instead, we decided to come up with this community mail survey. It still allowed us to have an opportunity to touch a broad section of the community by providing them a mailer that had information about the mill levy issue. And then we asked for feedback through a survey that was available to either be returned via mail or it could be taken online. So we mailed the survey in March to 1,529 households in your community. So we pulled a list from the Secretary of State's database, which is in my business is the cleanest, most up-to-date database because it's updated on a monthly basis. Basically, as people register to vote, the Secretary of State renews that list on a regular basis. So that is my best and most accessible resource to get a quality database of your community. And then we run that against the national change of address. We do all the standard practices, and then we household it so that if there's one or more people in a certain household, we just send one version so that we're not filling their mailbox up and encouraging recycling and waste. So respondents could, I said, complete the survey online or return it by mail. The surveys that were returned by mail were sent to us blindly and entered in by a third party. All identifiers were removed. The data, which is available to you all, it belongs to the town, has no personal identifiers in it. It's just all raw data. We received 282 completed surveys. 233 of those were completed online. 49 of them were were returned via mail. The noticeable difference when I reviewed the data between the online and the mail surveys was basically that the mail surveys were the ones returned via mail, not mail as in gender. The mail survey respondents were 65% 16 years or more of residency. So they kind of skewed to a longer term resident who utilized the return mail function. It represented an 18.4% completion rate, which to me was just off the charts. Usually these get about 4 to 6% completion rate. I did one of these for the city of Arvada, which is a pretty large town, I think the 6th largest in the state of Colorado last year, and we got almost 2,000 back, but that was only just about 6%. So, but it was quite a lot of work going through 2,000 of these. How did we get that completion rate, which I think is really great, 18.4%? We worked hard. We sent the mailer out. We followed up with a press release. We posted it on Facebook, on the town's website. We did an automated call to voicemails at people's homes, which Ryan recorded for us, reminding people to look in their mailbox. So we also took a lot of steps. I think it was important as part of the transparency, the accountability process here, that we made sure that people knew it was coming, they saw it, and that hopefully the community responded and sent them back. And I would say that 18.4% completion rate was really, it was really hit out of the park by the community. So thank everyone in the community for responding. So we only asked 2 demographic questions on this survey because we can't really get into the level of demographics that we can in a traditional survey. So we asked length of residency. And you can see here on the left pie chart that over more than 50% said that they've lived in Basalt for 16 years or longer. And interestingly, obviously, the longer you lived here, that indicates to us you're an older resident, an older Coloradan. And it is interesting as far as median age that Basalt is an older community. These are those numbers are from the state demographer website. Basalt's average median age is 43.9 years, and the average or median age in Colorado is just about 37 years. So we do have an older community. And then the other one we asked was county of residence, and so we received a 76.6% back from Eagle County residents, and the rest, 23.4 from Pitkin County residents, and that matches pretty close to your breakdown of 74.6% Eagle County and 25.4% Pitkin County. So I think that's a good sign that the few demographic questions we asked matched up to what we know about Basalt. Kind of gives us confidence that the survey did once again hit a good broad section and was responded to by the community. So let's get into what we wanted to find out in here. So our first question was, before receiving this information, how much have you seen, read, or heard about the mill levy? So awareness. You can see here that 28.72% said a lot, and nearly 50% said some. I would categorize that as pretty high awareness from your community. That's a lot of people in the know, a lot of people with their radar and antenna up paying attention to town issues. So that's a number that's pretty high in other issues that I've worked on and seen. I think on the RAFTA issue, Jackie, if you remember, as much as we were working on that, the awareness was really low on that. So nowhere near this kind of awareness. So you must have a very engaged, aware community. We asked, do you believe before receiving this information, would you say the town is, or in general, would you say the town is on the right track or heading in the wrong direction? And near exact one-third split here of your community. Right track, 34%, wrong track, around 33%, and then unsure. So pretty interesting to have in pretty even split. Lately, a lot of times right track, wrong track kind of flows with the economy. It just does. If you go look at piles of polling, right track, wrong track seems to really flow with the economy. So definitely something to watch, that you're really split into third, but we're in a pretty good economic time. But it really is a kind of a rule of thumb that it flows with economic times. How did some different groups? So throughout this presentation, I'm going to break out what we call some crosstabs, some interesting subsections based on the few demographics we have. But if you look, those who say the town's on the right track, which is on the far left, that about 32% of those who say the town's on the wrong track are some of your newest residents, 0 to 5 years. And then a little more compressed in the middle, and then your longer residents, 20 or longer, are 30%. But then on the wrong track side, you can see that your long-term residents kind of fill up that, with about 60% of those saying you're on the wrong track have been here 16 years or longer. So something to note. And then on the unsure side, once again, that the older, the longer term residents are more on the unsure side. So throughout the survey, we did want to collect people's comments, because without asking people their opinion, the survey just doesn't really tell us as much as we need to know. So on these slides, what I tried to do was pull out some representative comments, and I'm not sure we want to sit and read them all. You all will have the presentation. The presentation will be available on the town's website. So these comments are there. Many people who responded to the survey provided their thoughts in these open-ended questions, which is just really valuable for you all. And I do recommend everyone to read through them, because there's a lot to learn from these. So here's some representative quotes I tried to pull out from those who said the town's on the right track. They said, "A mistake was made, money was spent, make sure we comply in the future." Bless you. Another one from Pitkin County. "I believe that we have a great little town with great services. The staff and council try hard to make differences, and it shows." Another one, "The town recognized the administrative issue that ran afoul of Tabor and disclosed the potential issues to citizens." So, many more comments like that in there. And then when we switched to wrong track, we see other comments obviously they kind of turn in direction. For a mistake like this to happen and to not have anyone catch this Tabor issue is unacceptable. Our town government is awful. I'm sorry to have done that to you this evening, but it was kind of representative of some of the comments that were made. And and so, I feel these funds need to be returned to the taxpayers who put the money in this fund. How can you say you're going to have to cut out other areas when you collected too much in taxes? It doesn't make sense. So and then some of those who are unsure, interesting, I'll comment on this later, but in the top left corner, you have, even though this survey was about the mill levy issue, we have someone commenting, pan and fork project process is a disaster. We had a lot of opportunity, people shared their thoughts on more than just the mill levy on this. And there wasn't a lot of division in people's separation in people's mind on different issues the town is addressing, whether it's pan and fork, the mill levy, past issues. I saw lots of different things come up in the answers. And so I think a lot of those who responded to this, they're just not separating, this is the mill levy, we got to address the mill levy, this is that issue. It's just they kind of have it all together in their minds. So I think moving forward, you might be wanting to talk about the mill levy, but having to address other issues, and that's just how your community is. They have high awareness of what's going on in the town, and it sounds like they want to talk about it all. So just note that. Let's see. So this question was, please share your opinion about how you believe the town of Basalt should view its priorities. So we're just trying to see if like a direction could be set and if people had a feeling on the direction. And so the one opportunity was set the mill levy at the current rate to continue services. So really kind of get that done, move on. And then the other option was lower the mill levy rate or provide refunds to taxpayers, even if that means reducing some services. And you can see at 52%, that's where the respondents were heading. It's kind of saying to the town council, we want you to kind of go in that direction. But then we said, well, if we have to reduce our mill levy, we might have to trim some services to make some adjustments to the town budget. So we need your input on what services you value. What services do you believe are the most important for the town to provide? And we did ask that on a 1 to 5 scale, so we could see what kind of the graduated concern or feelings are on this. And as you can see, interestingly, it obviously moves. This is left to right was how it was asked, and interestingly, left to right is how you can see the intensity. I did not put the scale on there, but orange was 5, the yellowy orange color. So you can see 63.5% rated public safety and police as the most important service they believe the town provides. 51.77% said rated fire and flood mitigation as a critical town service. And then you can see it kind of drops off there, roads and sidewalks, 31.2. So, police, fire and flood mitigation, roads and sidewalks, plowing and street sweeping, those are the ones that at least our survey respondents rated as the most important services of the town.
Bill, can you go back to the previous slide?
Yes, sir.
That question, when it said lower the mill levy rate, did it say 294 levels of 2.6 or whatever it was, or was it just a generic question? Because that's
generic. Yeah. And I will, this is on Bill Ray. I will say in hindsight, always 2020, every time, I often say this, every time we do a survey, whether it's scientific or something like this, there's a question we felt we could have written or asked differently. And in this one, this is the one I would pick out as the question I would have written or asked differently, or because in some ways on it, I'm not sure what it is telling us, and I'm not sure. So, yeah, I'll kind of admit that one, on
Okay.
that one. So,
You're forgiven.
well, I appreciate it, but we also learn, right, from this. Like, next time if we do another survey like this, we might need to be much more prescriptive in how we ask it. You know, saying something like returning it to the number it was in 94, pre-94 levels or whatnot. So at the same time, we worked hard with Ryan and Christy and others to make this survey really not leading to be very, I hope, was very neutral in the way it worded questions. Now, there's always folks who say you didn't go far enough, and then others who say you went too far and it was a push-pull or something, and we just try and balance that out in the process. This clicker's not working. Can you go back one? One more, please. So here it is. We then asked, if an election were held today, would you vote yes in favor or no to oppose allowing the town of Basalt to maintain its property tax at the current rate of 5.957? The 5.957 rate would become the town's permanent rate to fund operations and services moving ahead. And you can see it, the yes had a very slight, statistically not significant edge. So virtually a tie. So about 42.5 to 41.5 with 16% undecided. Working again. So I tried to break out from our demographics who made up some of these different categories. So you can see on the yes, our younger, or our shorter term residents, 0 to 10 years, were more the majority on the yes side, but still 28.3% for 20 years or longer. On the no side, pretty pronounced that the longer length of residence, the more you were likely to say no. And then also unsure, also very similar. Longer length of residence, the more you were unsure of that question. Not to anybody's surprise, probably, that it follows the right track, wrong track question. If you believe the town's on the right track, 84.5% said yes. If you believe the town was on the wrong track, 77.42 said no to that question. And then as far as the unsure, almost one third, which is interesting. It changes quite a bit with awareness. You can see if you said that you've heard a lot about it, 40% yes, 44% no. But if you go all the way to the right, interestingly, 66 2/3 said yes if they had heard nothing about this before. Now, I will tell you, though, that those who said they had heard nothing was also a small group. So it's 66 2/3 of not a large cohort. So just note that. Then we asked, would you vote yes in favor or no to oppose to allow the town of Basalt to retain property tax revenue from previous years instead of reducing town services in order to provide a refund? And 52.5% said no to this question. So, over 50% kind of more favoring a refund at this point. Length of residency similarly follows this, but notably those the numbers changed a little bit, but notably on the yes side, the shorter length of residence were more likely to forego refunds, and the longer length of residency were more wanting to have refunds.
Jackie, I got one more comment.
Yeah.
Just as we talk about this is going to come up, but for me, the word refund is the wrong word, and I'm not blaming you, I reviewed this too, but it makes people think that money was taken and it's theirs and they deserve it back. When what actually happened here is that consistent mill levies were passed over many years and many administrations. And to me, the notion that that money was taken or wrongly used and must be given back is a message that we don't want to deliver in public communications as we go forward.
Yeah, that's fair. I think, you know, I'm not sure what other term we want to use than refund. But that could be something that you all as a council could, you know, kind of talk about how you want to just, you know, what terms, what words you want to use kind of as a policy setting issue.
Right.
As this moves
it'll be
forward.
a payment out of reserves. That's, I mean, we can talk about this more, but that's what it really is.
Right.
And Bill, if I could just follow up, and I don't know how in the world you could get this in a survey, but it doesn't seem to be clear, well, Tabor's not clear, but that we lowered and lowered and lowered. I don't know how you get that in there, that we lowered the mill for so many years, and we shouldn't have, as it turns out. We shouldn't have done that, but I don't think people, your average guy is getting that part, that we should have never lowered it for 10 years, because then we wouldn't have had to increase it for 10 years. So I don't know how that ever gets covered in communication. It's just,
It's this, I've worked on these kinds of Tabor issues before where mill levies were set by boards. I've done it for a fire district and a special district. And my experience on those two in the past is the community just didn't really, they just didn't want to know what the mistake was. They wanted to know what the solution was moving forward. Now, they had their ideas of what the solution should be. Cut services, give me a refund, or forgive and forget and move on. And that's kind of when you all as a council and your town staff kind of start to develop your policy, what you're going to possibly ask of voters. It's going to probably take, as far as I think this issue of the refund or the money that Tabor says for 4 years you might owe back, how you're going to communicate that is going to be, I think, an important piece of what you do moving forward. Engaging the community, I think these results definitely showed you need to keep the community engaged. You need to keep broadening the folks in the community that you're working with and talking to and bringing into this conversation, you know, so that the understanding level of not just what happened and when it happened, but what it means to move forward and resolve this issue. So that's out there. I think it's more that you need to have a conversation of what it means to the town to resolve this issue and move forward. I think that's an important part of this.
I agree. I just think in my mind, if there was a funnel here that was how much money they kept in their pockets while we went down for 10 years, I don't even know what those numbers are. I may have seen it somewhere from Christie, but how much money they kept in their pockets for that 10 years, how much would they, in that 10-year line, how much would they have paid in taxes if we hadn't have gone down? I need to know that number. I don't think I've seen that number, because it just would make me feel better.
Now, remember, your community has changed, grown, and has younger residents over the past 20 years who might not connect with
Right,
a 20-year history of Tabor.
because it
in the
wasn't
town of
them. It
Basalt.
wasn't them that saved money.
And those community members might be more interested and concerned about what this means to the town of Basalt now and in the future.
Well, I won't get stuck on it.
It's a good political, philosophical conversation.
It's beer talk, I'm sure.
So next one, the refund issue also, not surprisingly, follows the right, wrong track piece as well. with a little more intensity. Those who say the town's on the wrong track are we're 91% opposed to the refund issue. So obviously that's really, this concept of who believes the town's on the right track and the wrong track really plays into probably what solutions you all are going to start discussing and looking at moving forward, and how to probably continue to maybe use this issue to hopefully build trust, build transparency, build accountability with your community, and keep moving forward on issues of fiscal management, public finance, services the town provides. Then I've got 3 more pages of comments from those. For the interest of time and getting to probably some questions, maybe I'll just read a few. We had one: it would be silly/stupid to issue a refund and reduce town services. Our taxes are already extremely low relative to other states and communities. I understand that there could have been a higher amount collected over time. Basalt does a great job with services, and I would like to see that continue. Wiping out the reserves and lowering the revenue is not smart. Here's some thoughts from those who don't support the mill levy. The Tabor Amendment was put in place to make governments accountable to citizens and force these entities to prioritize expenditures. The amendment has served Colorado well. Basalt should not be allowed to have a get out of jail free card. Lots of pro-Tabor comments throughout. That's important to know. There were a lot of comments like in the lower right hand. You own the money. You owed the money then, you owe the money now, give it back, it's not yours. There were a lot of those kind of, I just want my refund, I just want my refund. So note that there were a lot of responses like that.
What was that?
There we go, we're good. Those who were unsure on the mill levy, some said there should be a way to set the mill levy going forward and refund some of the extra taxes collected. Several comments like that. Can there be a middle ground? There were some comments looking for a middle ground here. Does it have to be all or nothing? My property valuation has increased each year, so why has the mill levy had to increase to maintain the same services? So I think there's some need, very clearly throughout reading all these responses, there's definitely some need to do more budget education and how the town's budget works and what the different buckets of money are for the town, where those monies go and how they come in and how they're managed. So I think there's definitely a need to kind of maybe increase some of the conversations in the town about our budget. So here are some of my observations, and that was basically, it was a very short survey, as you all know. I hope everyone in the room took it, if you lived in Basalt. So both measures may struggle at the ballot, but the refund, according to these results, face a tougher road. You typically want to see a measure have above 50% yes to move ahead. You'd like to have the numbers as high as possible, but you'd at least like to see 50% support. But, to remind you, this was not a statistical sample. I don't know, because we couldn't collect the kind of data and compare it to a demographic representative sample of this community. I don't know who's over and underrepresented in this survey. So we just have to really look at this as a moment in time opportunity to have received some broad community feedback and help that inform your discussions moving forward on this, and pairing that with what you're learning by talking to constituents one-on-one, reading communications from constituents, whether that's email or Facebook posts, looking at what, the feedback you got at community meetings, public meetings. So this is just a way to add to that, all that knowledge that you're getting from your community. But I will caution that odd-numbered elections typically are considered harder and more difficult to pass tax questions. So just keep that in your mind as you're moving forward on this.
When you say the refund faces a far tougher road, what does that mean? You mean the,
Well, it was, at least if you want to kind of go off of these survey results, it had 52.5% saying no. If this was a.
saying no refund?
No, saying they want a refund. They would
I see.
vote no to a refund forgiveness style question.
Yep.
Typically, if we got that number in a traditional poll, I would be on the dais saying, we would recommend that you hold off on that kind of a question. Now, one of the problems you have here as far as, you probably do need to set your mill levy and get kind of that certainty of setting the mill levy. So despite some of these numbers here, you still have policy issues, fiscal management issues for the town that you have to move forward on. So how and if this, I'm sorry to use the term refund, might have to happen, and how to set the mill levy, you still do need to resolve those issues. And Tabor requires those issues generally to be resolved through an election. But typically, if we were doing a statistical poll and we got a negative response to that question of 52%, I would counsel you probably can't move forward with that question. Trust and concerns about the direction and leadership are just key throughout the open-ended responses, and appears to be impacted by the length of residency. So what I mean there is the longer you've lived here, just the kind of issues around concerns about the town's leadership, around bringing up trust or distrust of the town were more common. So and I just don't think it was just came up too many times in the survey to not bring it up to you all and note that was in the survey, that there was just a lot of comments about, we're concerned about the direction of the town, we're concerned about the leadership, we don't trust what the town is telling us. So just note that. There's definitely, if you look at these results, kind of a process that probably needs to happen, and maybe this is an opportunity through accountability and transparency on this fiscal issue to start building trust and opening more communication with the community. There is a recognition, absolutely, that the town is trying to be transparent on this issue and taking responsibility. But I will say that from what I saw, and kind of some conventional wisdom from doing this for 15 years, they don't separate the current town council, you all, from past town councils. It's just government. And we are in a level kind of right now nationwide of a higher level of distrust of government, right? I mean, if anyone's seen approval ratings of Congress lately, they're not very good. Now, I don't know how that translates to Basalt Town Council, but there's just not a lot of separation. There were a lot of comments of, blaming past, just saying this council is to blame for all of, these issues in the past. So there's just wasn't a difference, a separation in people's minds between council from 20 years ago who might have set this in motion and you all today, right now, on this council.
And some of us being the same the whole 20 years.
I just think you're town council, and
Yeah.
town council caused this. And now town council has to find a solution to try and fix this. Many respondents just don't separate this issue. I know I brought this up earlier from the Pan and Fork, and also used this survey to kind of register their displeasure with the riverfront issue. So there was just plenty of comments about people's concerns about that process. So just so you know, if you're curious about some current feelings on the Pan and Fork, read the open-endeds here as well. Respondents clearly took issue with the concept of reducing services. The way we wrote this survey, we obviously touched a nerve. That linking this issue with possibly reducing services was noted, and I would say not necessarily appreciated by the survey respondents. There was a lot of questions. Why do you have to, don't threaten us with reduced services? Why do we have to reduce services? There were comments, why should we reduce services? You can tighten your belt. Well, that is tightening your belt probably is reducing services. There were also a lot of comments of, don't reduce my services, take all that new tax money from Willits. Well, there's different buckets of money that come in. This is a mill levy, that's a sales tax. I mean, there's just, there was, kind of confusion about where money can come from, where money can be used, and then also just a general pushback on don't hang the services over our head on this issue. So I would just counsel you on that. And that's it. Questions?
Wow. Wow.
I want to just say, remember that this survey was part of trying to broaden our outreach to the community, because we shared information about the mill levy issue, how it was found, how it happened, what are the implications. We had some great charts. We even had an estimate of what you might receive back per your property value. There was a lot of information in there, a lot of great information to get out, where your community meetings may have had, 50 to 100 people at them. This went to 1,500 households. So it really was an attempt to expand our communication with our community and then seek their feedback. But remember, that's how people felt about it when they responded. As you work on your efforts to find a solution to this and maybe prepare a question or questions for an upcoming ballot, your community's opinion might change on these issues. So though maybe today is wow, but it also sets you on a course of kind of what you need to do moving forward as far as engaging the community further, how to talk about these issues more collaboratively with the community, and kind of how to start looking at what kind of questions to ask. Are you going to ask one question that contains both issues, or possibly two questions? So there's a lot of great information here to start from.
Okay. I think before we go to council, let's do like we always do. I see a couple members of the public here. Let's see if they have questions or comments first about this. Doug? Missy?
My name's Doug McDonald, and I'm listening with great interest to this presentation. One of the things that I noticed was that the longer-term residents seem to be more in the negative, but it seems to me that we make a good case for the fact that they benefited during the period when the mill levy was reduced. It seems like education is going to be important to get over the 50% mark, and so it may be presenting some information about what the actual taxes paid were as opposed to the jagged shape of the mill levy chart might be of interest to them. I did have a question about the general impact of Tabor and about how much the state required us to do with regard to this issue. I don't know exactly how many pieces of the puzzle that are addressed by state law and how much is determined at the town level. So that's a question that I have in my mind. Thank you.
Can one of you answer that?
I would just ask for a little more clarity. Did you fully understand it?
I don't think I fully understood your question. I'm happy to discuss it here, or I'm happy to just talk to you after the meeting.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay. Thanks, Doug. Nothing, Missy? Okay. Okay, council. Did you have your hand up first, Jen?
Yes. So Doug hit on, one of my main questions for you, Bill, is do you have any examples of other municipalities or districts who followed through after their survey results with the education and communication component?
That's what I do for, yes, the answer is yes, that's what I do. All the, we help then communities utilize this kind of information and how they better engage their community. So I can say right here, more closer to home, just last year with RAFTA, we did 2 surveys. I also want to say RAFTA never was over 50% actually in asking its ballot language of its tax increase. And it was a mill levy and bonding. But once again, it maybe for different reasons, RAFTA still had to felt it moved forward. It had to move forward. The board felt it had to move forward because of the transportation needs of the valley. So what we had to do then, and I very much counseled RAFTA, is we have to engage the community. So we sent out multiple mailers. We did some town hall style meetings. We came and briefed you all many times, probably more than you needed to be briefed, but we made sure to engage the community. We went to the Chamber of Commerce's up and down the valley. I had several meetings in the caboose right there. We engaged nonprofits, other local governments. So yeah, to communicate about the need. And that's exactly what I think you need to do here, is that you have to just continue to engage the community and help and have them try and help you learn how to talk about this and learn how to kind of move forward and be most successful. So typically, these always have to have a high level of community engagement to be successful.
Okay. Bill? I saw it coming. I saw it.
You knew it was going to come.
It's coming.
Well, Bill, I want to thank you for the good hard work and the great insights. I guess my only reflection is that these insights provide us with some of the tools to inform our decision-making, but this is not a decision unto itself. We've got a lot of education, and very fortunately, we will be having the second reading of the Financial Accountability Board later, and one of their chief mandates is education, which couldn't be more timely. But I share your commitment to accountability, transparency, and community engagement. So that's where I'm kind of curious, where do we go with this next? How do we make it available? And did the community express any preferences for how they want to get information in the future?
Right, great question. So first of all, I've already provided this presentation and the raw data to the town. It's yours, it's the town's, it's the community's information. The town already has a tab on its website for the mill levy issue, and the presentation will be posted there for the community to review. And if they have questions, they can call the town, talk to Ryan to follow up with any questions. I didn't do a slide on it because it was kind of more to inform our moving forward efforts, but we did ask a question how folks wanted to get further information on this, because I want to make sure that to help you communicate with the way your community wants to be communicated with, more than about half actually said they want to get this from email going forward. Well, I will say then we have kind of a challenge because we're going to have to start finding a way to encourage folks to give us their email address and then not communicate with them that's too oppressive and spammy. The second most, and clearly was, I thought worked with this survey, is people said good old US mail works fine. What was very low was social media, was interesting to me. Definitely not a lot of interest in more public town hall style meetings. So let's get the information direct to them via mail. We could do some things to try and encourage people to provide their email address. We could set up like a MailChimp program, you know, which is one of those great simple blast email programs, and start to collect email addresses moving forward. But that was interesting to me because most folks are pretty concerned about their email boxes filling up, but that was definitely high ranked.
Interesting.
And I would say, if I might add, just as far as a preview of what's to come, Christy and I have been doing some work around the budget, and we actually got together with the members of our finance committee and brainstormed with them this last week about a budget flyer, a budget information sheet that we could start that education just around, you know, how we pay for our services and you know, how the budget works, the different pots of money or different colors of money. And so that's going to be sort of our next step to start that.
What a great idea.
Glad I thought of it.
Maybe that piece might even include a request for email addresses.
Always.
If you want to learn
Yeah.
more and stay on top of this issue, or point them to a place, you know, to add their email addresses to a list.
So kind of going back to Bill's reference to next steps, do you have something sort of honed in, like a little bit of a timeline of this happens, then this happens, or the suggestion of what should happen next and after that?
Interestingly, Ryan and Bill and I talked about that this afternoon just briefly, is what is a timeline look like, and we actually discussed that should probably put together that timeline and provide that to you all so that you can see what the timeline looks like. I will tell you that September 6th is the deadline to refer a question. But importantly, actually, you have a deadline of July 26th to inform the clerks in your two counties that you might do a question. Doesn't lock you into it, but you need to actually, and I can provide all that information to Ryan, but you have to signal your intention to move forward toward a question. Doesn't mean you have to, just they need to know that. Because it needs to be a coordinated election because you're in two counties.
Right, exactly.
It seems like we know we have to ask, or will you ask the town if they'll set the mill levy at 5.94 or whatever it is.
Right.
We know that's gonna be on the ballot, so we should make sure we don't bungle that by forgetting to file, right? I mean, the only question.
Pam, did you get that? Did you hear the threat in that?
Don't bungle.
The only real question is there a secondary piece of that, or is there a second question?
I mean, I hope that we consider two questions, because I think wrapping it up, this is just me, not the council, not the consultant. I just feel like wrapping it up, wrapping too much up, we have too much to lose if it's all in one question. That's
So,
my opinion.
It makes our jobs a little easier. We know the first question. We just have to figure out if there's a second and what exactly that says.
Well, there's the keep it as it is, and there's the refund everything from the past questions.
Make a donation out of reserves. That's
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just my thinking, and I don't know if this is the right place and time to have folks weigh in, but I think, I personally would like to have us get a little bit more information, but the reality is those are the questions. So, yeah, Jeff?
Yeah, Ryan, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the intent is to come back to council at a future meeting with some discussion on the possible questions for the ballot. And then, I'm not sure if we'll do that in one or two meetings where we're gonna get direction and then get action at a second meeting to put it on the ballot, or do it all in one. But there's still a little bit of work to be done based on the survey results between now and then. But
Sure.
is that accurate?
Yes, I think so.
Did you have anything else, Ryan?
No, I think that hard work is going to need to be done, probably June, July timeframe, just so that we avoid bungling. But yeah, I mean, we'll get that timeframe and get that schedule out to you all, just so that we can anticipate any steps that we would need to take. we'll
Word
keep
bungle,
updating
the
you.
bungle word scares me when it even came out your mouth.
I do, think it's important to mention too that, and I know Bill said it, but any new information that we get, so the mailer around the budget, all of that stuff, once again, we'll keep putting it on the website. And then I think if we send it out, it'll reach the greatest number of people. And we really, I think, need to do a lot of education around this issue, just so that there's a better understanding of it ultimately.
And on that budget piece too, maybe you could, direct that specifically to us with maybe a little conversation about it, because that's something I've been concerned about since we finished the budget 5 months ago.
Absolutely.
And that was before anything, so. It's just nice to be able to deliver that message like because it's complicated too, so. Okay, anything else, Bill? Or council? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you so
I
much.
do want to say thank you for the opportunity to work with you and assist on this issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Thanks,
Ray. Okey dokey. On that note, does anybody have to take a break or anything like that? Okay. Why don't we all just take 5 for a second, regroup?
Did that tire you out, Jackie?
Actually, do you see my ears like going like this? That was interesting stuff. Our next item is, looks like BPAC Work Plan Budget and Resolution. Resolution of the town approving Basalt Public Arts Commission 2019 grant program, Watkins, Falk, and Gray, and Missy.
Yes, ma'am, and Missy Hoggins here too.
Hagen.
Hagen, excuse me.
It's okay.
Did you just meet?
You hang
Did
out
you just
for-
meet?
You hang out for an hour, bored out of your mind, and he mispronounces your name. First thing.
I don't blame him. I mispronounce it myself.
Okay, go ahead, sorry.
Well, we're here to talk about BPAC's work plan and budget, if you all would like, any questions you have over that, but we're especially here to talk about the granting program. The document for which we've prepared is included in your packet. It's been reviewed by the planning director and by the town manager. We've budgeted, or BPAC has budgeted $40,000 from their budget to go toward granting, and granting is a way to improve the arts, let it grow, and hopefully get something that we can all experience and see and appreciate. The real meat of the granting program is included as the exhibit to the resolution that we have proposed. So it has kind of policies of who can apply, how much grants can be for, all kinds of questions like that. It's possible we could get stumped with some kind of question about eligibility for grants, but this is our starting place, what we hope is sufficient to get some good applications in. And the way we've structured this is for BPAC to provide recommendations to you, the town council. They will review the applications, they will recommend what grants should be approved, and then let that be the town council's decision. The town's ethics guidelines will very much apply to BPAC commissioners for this. The way we have it structured now, as you all know, BPAC members represent arts organizations, many of them do, and so they would not be prohibited from applying for grants, their organizations wouldn't, but obviously the members would have to recuse themselves, leave the room when their grant was being reviewed. So that's about all I have. We're happy to take any questions. Missy?
I have something.
Yes,
I have
ma'am.
something. I just wanted to say that this is awesome and great work. I mean, clearly there has been some heavy lifting done. You know, I think that it was on us to have all our committees brought up and consistent, and so our staff did a lot of work as well to bring this forward. But I just have to say, just right down to the application, and it's just looks to me to have been very well thought out, and I have to say, great work. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Other thoughts?
I have very similar thoughts. I think it's kind of exciting in some ways that the fact that Modio can't go forward frees you up to do new and different stuff, and this is exciting.
We tried to make it as clean and concise and as efficient as possible. Because when you fling this sort of application out to people, especially artists, because we're not left-brained, we're right-brained. So we wanted to make it as easy as possible to seek the grant. And it'll be just as clean for us to review it and then to be able to make recommendations to you guys.
Well, we have seen this before where pushing each other makes us both better, raises the bar for both of us, so it's good.
And it focuses on our working together, which is what the point is.
Yep.
So,
Anyway, I don't have anything else. Anybody have questions or comments or motions or anything? Is this a motion thing?
Yeah, we need a motion to approve the resolution.
Okay.
Mayor, I
Mayor?
Mayor, I move the town council approve resolution number 21, series of 2019.
Second?
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Great.
Thanks.
Have fun.
May I hear an amen?
Amen.
Hey, women.
Hallelujah.
A women, that's right. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks. Thanks, Susie. Oh, here's the really fun-looking one. Code enforcement issue, 112 East Hillside Drive. Dr. Conklin.
Okay, so this agenda item relates to a code enforcement issue for property at 112 East Hillside Drive. I'll first say I think this is an issue that wouldn't normally come in front of council, but kind of due to the facts and circumstances of this case, staff and I are seeking some direction from council on how to proceed and want to check in with you here at this meeting. There was a memo in your packet outlining the background of this matter, and and I'll kind of hit the highlights here. And that's
That would be good.
Okay. So again, this property, or this matter concerns property at 112 East Hillside. It's property owned by Norm and Laura Clayson, and that it's a residence that has an ADU structure on it. And in 2014, 2004, the town granted a special review approval for that ADU to be located on the property. And that's the normal process you go through to have an ADU at your property. The ordinance approving that had several conditions on the approval. One of them was that the property owner record an amended site plan for the property within a certain period of time from the ordinance was effective, and also to record a deed restriction related to the property. We discovered, let me say, we later discovered that never occurred, but we didn't discover that until this past fall. So because that never occurred, the special review approval for the ADU was deemed null and void. So again, this issue came to the town staff's attention this past fall, and the town staff investigated that. They made the property owner aware of that, had a pre-application, or had a meeting with them to kind of discuss these issues and whether or not there was a path to cure their code violation, because the 2004 approval was void. They're technically in violation of the code by having an ADU without an ADU approval. And so based on that meeting, there was a pre-application meeting, which is typical before any land use application, and the property owners went ahead and prepared an application to kind of redo what had been done in 2004. So once that application was filed, in review of it and based on some comments received by Lee Leavenworth, who's here, and on behalf of Clay Crossland, and he also submitted some materials that are in your packet, we discovered a title problem with the property that it was determined in order for the application to proceed, that issue needed to be resolved. And I'm going to pause here and say that because that title issue may result in a lawsuit in which the town may be involved, that's not it. The details of that are not an issue I want to get, or the town council should get into in this meeting. But in any case, that was the determination based on the application being submitted, and it's my understanding from the applicant that they have been working towards curing or fixing that title problem through pursuing a quiet title action. And that process has been delayed due to some medical issues with the property owner's attorney. And so because so much time has kind of gone by since the time we first discovered this issue, and here we are now, we wanted to again check in and kind of get some direction from council as to whether or not staff should continue to hold off on code enforcement proceedings while the property owner tries to resolve this title problem, and then resubmits a land use application to try to get the approval for the ADU. And again, because I'll pause here also and say that because the land use application, a new land use application for approval of an ADU is not in front of you, and maybe that's not something, the merits of that are not something that should be discussed tonight. And So based on staff's review of the situation, the position that staff would like to take and is asking for council support of is to continue to hold off and stay the code enforcement action while the property owners pursue the quiet title action, and that stay not last for more than 6 months unless it's extended in the discretion of the town manager based on his reasonable discretion, and that to ensure that during this period of time there aren't more code violations with that property that occur. That'd be one other condition while we would hold off on code enforcement action.
So Ryan and I talked about this a little bit as well, and so there's a lot of places where we don't want to step.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess, just to be clear, is staff's recommendation to hold off on code enforcement action for 6 months? And is there more to that sentence?
For 6 months with possible discretion, extensions in the discretion of Ryan and staff, and those extensions would need to be reasonable under the circumstances.
Okay. I mean, people can feel free to ask questions if they would like, or I would say that that's practically a motion if.
And before
Is this not a
council,
motion
before
thing?
council provides any direction on this, I do know that there was some materials in the memo from Lee Leavenworth, and I know he's here and might
Okay.
also provide comment.
Okay.
And the Claysons, the property owners are also
Okay,
here.
sure. We would love to hear any comments that you have for us. Lee?
Thank you.
Haven't seen you for a while, Lee.
No,
How's everything?
good. My name is Lee Leavenworth. I'm a consultant for Linda and Clay Crossland. They're out of state or they would be here. I put some material in your packet, which I'm going to not repeat, but the concern that I have is that this has been an illegal ADU for 14 years. Since its discovery, it's been 6 months. The quiet title action is a result of the town's deed to the property owner back in 2004, which was property that had been deeded to the town and restricted by plat note to open space and public open space. And the deed from the town didn't change that. The deed from the town also had a legal description error, which didn't close, and all kinds of problems, and became very clear that no title company was going to touch it. And that deed was necessary to establish the minimum square footage to serve, or to allow for this ADU use. There were two conditions in the ordinance. One was that it be owner occupied. The other was that the property deed restrict the ADU to one parking space. Neither were ever done. And I don't think it was ever intended that they were going to get done. My concern is very simple. Are you going to reward 14 years of an illegal use? Because that's what's going to happen here. And it makes the entire process look like a sham with a foregone conclusion. If we're not going to enforce the code, you may as well give them a permit tonight as far as I'm concerned. Thanks.
Thanks, Lee. Mr. and Mrs. Clayson, either one of you want to speak?
Well, to speak to the 14 years, I'm sorry, my name is Laura Clayson and I'm one of the property owners. To speak to the 14 years, both the town and the Claysons were under the assumption that it was a legal ADU. We have been paying 2 tap fees. No, there hasn't been a word between the town or ourselves or anything. It was just, everyone thought it was legal. So that's the first thing. We didn't go for 14 years ignoring the law. When we bought it, it wasn't a legal ADU. We went through the process of legalizing it. That's when we got the town's approval. So we certainly wouldn't do anything. You know, why would we do that? Not complete it. We didn't do anything to break the law. We've done everything we can to make it legal and follow the law and the code and work with everybody. And we're doing that right now. And as he said, our attorney had an accident, and, you know, we're working now to continue that, so.
Thanks, Laura. Thank you. Well, I read the document. I have to say that I wasn't sure where we should be commenting or not, and I prefer, if it's okay with council, that we just do as staff advises and see how the follow-up goes, because you're not talking about an endless time frame. You are talking about time to cure, suggesting that they be given time to cure. And am I saying that right? Is that what?
Yeah, so typically, and Susan or James can speak to this as well, but typically when a code violation is found, or oftentimes, if there is a path to curing that, then there's an opportunity given to do so before, the town takes more punitive code enforcement measures. And that's the case here, again, because of kind of the other issues involved and the length of time that is taken place. That's kind of why we're doing this check-in, to get some direction, to make sure that that's how we're proceeding here is consistent with council's wishes as well.
Council, comments, questions?
Yeah, that seems like the prudent approach. I mean, we're not gonna do a code enforcement act right now on having just discovered this issue and trying to understand it ourselves. Let's try to fix it.
Yes, sir.
Well, I guess my only question, it sounds from your memo, Jeff, that since this was identified, the Claysons have acted only in good faith, attempting to resolve and remedy. So is 6 months enough time? I have no idea how these things proceed. So if we give them 6 months to cure, is that enough, or is that going to be an overly ambitious
Jeff
target?
did include language to extend with their discretion.
Oh, so if 6 months doesn't work, then Ryan can extend under his own authority.
I will say that 6 months is likely a pretty tight timeline.
Okay.
On a quiet title action, it would depend on if any other persons claim any interest in the property. But once that's resolved, there would still need to be the land use application that would then need to be reviewed. And again, that is not a foregone conclusion, the outcome of that application. But I'm sure the Claysons would be doing work to ensure that they would put forward the best application they can in relation to the code. Yeah.
Any other?
Okay, no,
Bill, were you still had something more?
no, I
Oh,
said,
okay.
no,
Okay.
I'm good.
Anybody? Is there a motion then on this?
Mayor, I move the town council direct staff to continue to stay the code enforcement action with respect to the Clayson property as recommended by staff in the memo from Carp New Hanlon PC dated April 17th, 2019.
Thank you, Adam. Second.
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you everyone for coming in, just to give us a little more clarity on the issue, and staff for your work on this, and we'll keep in touch. Have a good evening. Okay, the next item is public hearing and second reading of Ordinance 7, an ordinance of the town establishing the Basalt Finance Advisory Board as a formal advisory board to the town council. Ryan and Christie?
Sure, so this is the second reading. We sort of went through a description last meeting with regard to the bylaws for the advisory board. We got some comments and talked through those, and so I think what's on these bylaws tonight is reflective of that conversation. We also had a meeting last Wednesday with the Finance Advisory Board and did a check-in with them on these comments and got the thumbs up. So staff is prepared to, ask that the council make a positive recommendation on this second reading, or positive.
Something, a positive something?
Yes, on this second reading.
Okay. Questions on this one? Comments?
only have one follow-up, and it's the same issue I brought up last week, so I'll defer again to Jeff. Jeff, is there a circumstance when the Financial Advisory Board member can present themselves as a representative of the town in any manner?
So give me an example of what you're
Well,
thinking of here.
the language says the Financial Advisory Board member shall avoid representing themselves as a town official, suggesting that if they can avoid it, that is not declarative, it is not restrictive. They should only avoid representing themselves as town council. It doesn't prohibit them from representing or enjoin them from representing. So
I think the intent there is not, I think the intent of that is that the finance committee member not represent that they are acting with some authority of the town. And that instead that, of course, it would be acceptable to say, I'm on the finance committee, because it's a statement of fact, but you wouldn't be, interacting with the public or elsewhere with stating that you have some authority on behalf of the town or an elected official, or, I mean, you are, but the other people that are on the finance committee, I think the intent is to avoid how you're presented.
So as a lawyer, you're satisfied that we, under no circumstance, would ever encounter any liability from anyone on any board, not necessarily only financial advisory, representing that they have the authority to bind the town to some commitment or contract or other obligation?
And the intent is also to make it clear that if you're interacting with the public outside of the context of a finance committee meeting or a town council meeting, that you are providing comment in official capacity of the town, not just the authority, but in that official capacity on behalf of the finance committee. Again, telling someone that you are on the finance committee is a statement of fact, but tying that into anything more than that, I think is what this is intended to do here.
Right, and so if we don't want them to represent themselves, why wouldn't we say that they shall not represent themselves? Shall avoid.
We certainly can say that, and
I don't understand what the aversion is, but if you're comfortable as a lawyer and you think that there is no possible circumstance when somebody from a financial advisory board or any other board says, hi, Mr. So-and-so, service provider, contractor, other, I am on this or that committee and I have the authority to do whatever it is I want to commit the town to do. And that might be misconstrued.
I can say that from a legal perspective, if the desire is to make it a hard line, certainly the word not instead of avoid would be a better choice of words.
And if you're comfortable not having a hard line, then I would say I defer to.
And Brian, and if there's a reason for why that was drafted that way, you might.
Yeah, I don't get it.
That's my fault. So that I'm the one that drafted this. The intent is that they shall not represent themselves and step outside of what their duty is as a consultant to this board. It's easy enough for us to make that change to shall not. That was the intent of this, that, we're not trying to create a window. And if in your mind that creates a window, then change it.
Just in order to move on. Who moved that? Who made that motion?
There's no motion. So, and as a reminder, this is a public hearing, so we'll want to make sure that there's public comment.
Right, okay.
I don't care.
Okay.
Personally, I like it.
Okay.
But if they're following public comment, if there is to be a motion, it could be, this is an insubstantial amendment, and it could be made with, from.
I thought we already had a motion, that's all.
Avoid to not.
Okay, so it's public hearing, we'll open the public hearing, and then we will, hearing nothing out there, close the public hearing and go to council for additional questions or a motion. Bill?
Mayor, let me put on my glasses. Mayor, I move that the town council adopt ordinance number 07, series of 2019, on second reading, subject to the amendment of shall avoid to shall not.
Is there a second? Second. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okey dokey. Let's see, 7D, I guess this is a public hearing too. Public hearing and second reading of ordinance 8, an ordinance of the town establishing the Basalt Parks Open Space and Trails Committee as a formal advisory board to the town council. Brian and Susan.
The same, this is the same as the first one. We highlighted in the ordinance the changes that were made based on the comments. And one of them was to tighten up the language regarding out-of-town residents. And I was just kind of flagging a little bit of additional background on that, is that the Post Committee had made that recommendation after realizing that most of the town's committees actually allow out-of-town resident. Only the P&Z and the town council are members without out-of-town. And we added language, stronger language about which zip codes that you had to live in, and that you had to be a registered voter in the Roaring Fork Valley, and demonstrate a strong commitment to parks, open space, and trails. And the other reason that it came up in post when they're talking about the revenues is that it comes from the sales tax, the 1% sales tax, not from property revenues, which are also paid by out-of-town residents. And that was kind of maybe the deciding factor in at least one of the members on post when they were talking about that. So I think we're probably ready for a motion. I would put the same amendment in there so that they're consistent. This is a public hearing, but once you make the motion, you might add the Councilor Infante amendment to the shall not in the
We'll let Bill make it, because he's got it down.
Yeah.
He's got the words
I'm
down.
just looking for the reference.
Yeah.
Because I actually didn't see that in the post.
Yeah, it is on the bottom of the first page. It says the Post Committee works as agreed and should avoid pursuing, so the same language would change there.
Okay, it's a public hearing. We will open the public hearing. Hearing nothing, we will close the public hearing. And see if there's any council questions or comments or motions.
Okay, take it at face value. I would be pleased and honored to move again on this one, creating post. Mayor, I move that town council adopt ordinance number 8, series of 2019, on second reading, subject to the same amendment as agreed under the prior ordinance.
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Good.
Aye.
Opposed? Great, thank you. Okay, this is also a public hearing and second reading of ordinance 9, an ordinance of the town amending chapter 4, article 4, and chapter 6. Pardon me, it's my eyesight. Article 1, business licenses and regulations of the municipal code to provide for an exemption for sales tax and business license requirements for entities without a physical presence in the town. Christie and Jeff.
You guys always love to save the best for almost last, don't you?
We do.
Yeah, it's very exciting stuff, as you guys know.
I know, I tried to read it earlier.
Yes. Well, I mean, I'll tell you though, in all reality, I had a business owner that I was able to explain what we're looking at doing and trying to simplify things for them with the challenges that they have with the new sales tax regulations and compliance, and people are very happy about this change and very appreciative. So, so I see it as real positive for our business community outside of the town, and hopefully, help others to follow suit in that way to make this simple for people to adhere to.
Right. Is this a public hearing? Yes. Yes, it is, by golly. So we'll open the public hearing on this item, which, in case you didn't hear it, was about sales tax. I don't think they're here for that. Hearing nothing, we'll close the public hearing. Go to council for comments, questions, motion.
Congratulations to staff. I think this is a wonderful initiative as a retailer, it does make a very, very big difference. And it is completely consistent with our efforts to reduce bureaucracy, red tape, and unnecessary regulation. So, yay. Thank you,
And?
Christie. Thank you, Ryan. And Mayor, I move that the town council adopt ordinance number 9, series of 2019, on second reading.
Second.
Further discussion? Oh, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? None? Great. That was easy. And I think this is our final item. 7F, rescind policy 110, Finance Committee. But there's no Finance Committee here, right?
So what this one was our previous iteration of a finance committee, and so we just wanted to clean up. It's more of a housekeeping issue now that we've got the new ordinance in place, which is the appropriate way to set up a town board. And so the old makeup will go away.
It's just taking away policy 110.
Yep.
Anything?
I was going to make a motion.
It's not a public hearing. Great, go for it.
Mayor, I move that the town council rescind policy 110.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Awesome.
First
Thank you.
hat trick in
Thank you
motioning.
so much, everybody, for your great work. And
Oh, wait, one more thing. What? Well, we wanted to introduce our master plan consultants. and they're-
yes,
they are
right,
here,
right.
so
Thank you, Susan.
You can humor me for a second. We have here today Wayne Freeman and Dave Dixon. You guys want to come up and introduce yourselves? I just want to introduce, they're part of the CTA team that's with Connect One Design, and they have been selected to do our master plan, and this was kind of the big kickoff week with our meeting on Thursday, and I just, maybe if you guys could say a couple of words to the council and a couple upcoming steps.
Sure, we're happy to be here and have actually spent quite a bit of time in Basalt over the last few months, even though this is really the kickoff weekend. So we've had the opportunity to meet quite a few folks and spend some time talking with people, hearing some diverse opinions, and talking to business leaders, talking to folks that are just live here. Had great opportunity to walk around Old Town today and spend some time actually knocking on doors, have yet to be thrown out of a place, so that's good.
It's good.
And we've just had a great opportunity, felt really embraced. I heard a lot of people that feel passionate about their community so far. Maybe a quick rundown, we've got 3 public meetings that are scheduled over the next month. And we also have a number of neighborhood workshops. We just came from one. I think Dave and I are both brain dead from talking today and listening to people. I probably got 20 pages of notes just listening to people.
We did announce some of the meetings and also sent people earlier to the website.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And maybe you could just talk about that there's another one on neighborhood meeting tomorrow.
Yeah, we've got another one tomorrow at 5:30. I'll have to look to see.
That's the ones at the Basalt Elementary.
Yeah,
Library.
right. We've got, and we've tried to locate them in different geographic locations of the town. So we reached out and tried to get with folks. We've had some good press, got the word out, and I think, again, we look forward to spending the next 9 months hovering around and talking to people.
Getting immersed, yeah.
Great. Thank you so much for coming in. You probably had long days.
It's what you're paying us for.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And just kind of a heads up, we were talking today about potentially having a joint P&Z and Town Council meeting the 4th Wednesday of May, which...
29th, I think.
is I believe it's the
That's right,
29th. And so we'll let you know, because the week ahead of that, we were also having another meeting we are gonna invite you to on the River Park. So,
Oh geez, tell us later.
Yeah, okay, that's okay. I just want to
We're not
plan.
finished with this one yet.
Okay, and that's all I have, and I think
Yeah.
that's all.
Yeah, again, thank you very much. Appreciate the opportunity to come in and talk to you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Are you gonna leave your
you.
business
Great work.
cards so we
Sure.
can bug you?
Got nothing but,
You
lots
got
of
business cards, I bet. Anyway, this meeting's adjourned, so we can go get business cards and stuff. Thanks, guys.